The terminal at Chicago O'Hare buzzed with the kind of midday energy that never quite settled. Announcements overlapping, roller bags clacking across tile, the low hum of 1,000 separate conversations blending into white noise. Dominic Russo moved through it without drawing a single second glance. At 34, he had mastered the art of being invisible in plain sight. Dark jeans, plain black sweater, no watch that caught the light, no rings, no flash. To the families rushing past and the executives checking their phones, he was just another guy heading home after a deal that required his physical presence in Detroit. Nothing more, nothing less. He preferred it that way. 3 days in Motor City had been enough. Face-to-face conversations where eye contact carried more weight than any contract clause. Men who needed to feel the quiet menace in his voice before they signed anything. Now he was on his way back to New York, back to the city where his word could silence rooms and his absence could start wars. He settled into a seat near Gate 47, laptop open but untouched, eyes scanning the crowd out of habit. Old instincts never slept. That was when he noticed her. She walked slowly, too slowly for someone her age, early 20s maybe. Dark hair tied back in a messy knot, pale skin, oversized gray hoodie that swallowed her small frame. A rigid white cervical collar braced her neck, the kind meant for serious injury. A thin red line marked her left cheekbone, fresh enough that the edges still looked raw beneath a hasty swipe of concealer. She moved like someone counting every step, like pain had taught her the rhythm. A man walked beside her, mid-40s tall, dressed in the careful casual of someone who wanted to look harmless, polo shirt tucked neatly, khakis, leather messenger bag. His hand rested on her elbow, not hard enough to bruise in public, but firm enough to guide, to steer. He spoke low. She nodded once. No smile, no words, just the mechanical dip of her chin. Dominic's gaze narrowed. They sat 3 rows ahead. The man pulled out his phone, thumbed through messages. The woman folded her hands in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. Her breathing was shallow, controlled. One thumbnail worried the cuticle of her opposite hand in tiny, repetitive motions. The man glanced over. The motion stopped instantly. Dominic felt the familiar cold coil in his gut. He had seen this pattern before, different cities, different faces, same choreography. Fear wearing the mask of obedience. Most people in the terminal would see a concerned relative helping someone recover from an accident. That was the genius of it. Monsters didn't advertise. They wore patience and polo shirts and made everyone else look away. The boarding call crackled over the speakers. Flight 2847 to LaGuardia, Group 1. The man stood. She rose immediately, fluid, practiced. They joined the line. Dominic stayed seated for another 30 seconds, weighing the smart play against the right one. Smart said walk away. This wasn't his territory. This wasn't his business. Right said something else. He stood, grabbed his carry-on, and fell into line 6 people behind them. The flight was light. Midweek, mid-afternoon, plenty of open seats. Dominic's ticket put him in first class, row 3 window. They were back in economy, row 17. Window for her, aisle for him, middle seat empty. Before takeoff, the man rose and headed toward the lavatory. For the first time since Dominic had spotted them, she was alone. Dominic moved. He walked down the aisle like he was stretching his legs, eyes on the overhead bins. When he reached row 17, he paused. She stared out the window, reflection pale against the glass. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. "Excuse me," he said quietly. She turned, startled. One hand flew to the collar, protective. "I noticed the brace," Dominic continued, voice low and calm. "You okay? Need anything?" For half a heartbeat, something flickered in her expression. Hope, maybe, or simple surprise that someone had asked. Then it vanished. "I'm fine," she said softly, too practiced. "Thank you." "The man you're with," Dominic said carefully. "He family." "He's my uncle," she answered immediately. Helping me after a car accident, I'm okay. Really. Dominic studied her. She held his gaze, steady, convincing, almost, but her left hand, hidden from the aisle by the seatback, trembled against her thigh. He nodded once. Hope you feel better soon. He started to turn away. That was when she did it. Her right hand lifted, just an inch, just for a second. Palm flat, thumb tucked in, 4 fingers pressed tight together. Then it dropped back to her lap. The signal. Dominic's blood turned to ice. He knew it. A silent SOS born on social media, spread through survivor networks. A last resort plea when words weren't safe. Palm out, thumb folded, fingers together. Help me. I can't speak. He kept walking. Didn't react. Didn't look back. But inside, every instinct he had honed over 15 years in the family snapped awake. The man returned. Dominic buckled into his seat, stared at the seatback, mind racing. He could alert a flight attendant, report suspicion. But what proof did he have? She'd deny it. She'd call the man her uncle. She'd smile and say everything was fine. The story would hold. Abusers always made sure the story held. Dominic knew this from memory. 7 years earlier, he had let a girl slip through his fingers. Sophia, 22, worked the books at one of his legitimate restaurants in Brooklyn, showed up with bruises she explained away. A boyfriend who waited outside every night watching. Dominic had asked once. She said no, said it was nothing, said he was protective because he cared. Dominic had accepted the answer, because it was easier, because it stayed outside his world. 3 weeks later, she was gone, beaten to death in her own apartment. Neighbors heard screams. No one called until morning. He had paid for the funeral, anonymous. It hadn't mattered, she was still dead. He had sworn that night, never again. If he saw the signs, he wouldn't wait for permission. He would act. The plane leveled off. Dominic unbuckled, walked toward the back. On his return, he crouched beside row 17. The man's head lolled against the headrest, eyes closed, sleeping or pretending. Dominic brought himself level with her. I saw it, he whispered. She turned, confusion, then fear. The signal, he said. I know what it means. When we land, I'm not walking away. I don't care what he's told you. I'm getting you out. But I need to know what I'm dealing with. Her eyes widened. Tears gathered but didn't fall. He's not your uncle, is he? She glanced at the sleeping man, looked back, shook her head once. Name, Dominic asked. Alina, she breathed. How long? 3 months. He taking you somewhere you don't want to go. A nod. ID, phone. Another nod. He hurt you. Her fingers brushed the collar, the cut on her cheek. No words needed. Okay, Dominic said, voice steady as steel. When we land, stay close to him. Act normal. Don't change anything. Can you do that for 2 more hours? He'll know, she whispered. He always knows. Then make sure he doesn't. You've done it for 3 months. You can do 2 more hours. A single tear escaped. She wiped it fast. Why are you helping me? She asked. Dominic met her gaze. Because someone should have a long time ago, and because I failed someone once, I won't do it twice. He stood, returned to first class, pulled out his phone. 3 short calls, all coded. All to men who understood that when Dominic Russo asked, the world moved. LaGuardia at 4 in the afternoon was the usual storm. Crowds surging, voices overlapping, the sharp smell of jet fuel drifting in from the tarmac. Dominic deplaned first, waited near the gate, watched. The man, Marcus Hale, though Dominic didn't know the name yet, emerged with Alina close beside him, hand on her lower back, guiding, controlling. Dominic followed at distance. They headed toward baggage claim, 1 black suitcase, nothing else, then ground transportation. Outside, the sun cut hard across the pavement. Horns blared. Taxis jockeyed. Dominic's phone buzzed. Luca Morty, his consigliere in New York, texted. Black Escalade, third in taxi line. Ready. Dominic typed back. Hold position. He watched them climb into a yellow cab. The driver pulled away. Luca's Escalade eased in behind. Dominic slid into a waiting dark sedan. Tinted windows. Driver who never spoke unless spoken to. Follow the cab, Dominic said. They melted into traffic. The ride took 23 minutes. Queens streets narrowed, buildings aged, neighborhoods quieted. The cab stopped in front of a narrow two-story house, peeling beige paint, chain-link fence sagging, yard overgrown with weeds and neglect. The kind of place people drove past without remembering. Marcus paid the driver, pulled Alina out, grabbed the suitcase, unlocked the front door. They disappeared inside. Luca's Escalade parked 2 houses down. Dominic's sedan pulled alongside. Dominic stepped out, joined Luca in the back of the SUV. Entrances, Dominic asked. Front, back, through kitchen, 2 first-floor windows, 3 upstairs, Luca answered. No visible alarm, standard locks. Left neighbor empty, for sale sign. Right side elderly couple, probably hard of hearing. Across street multi-family rental. No one's calling anything in unless shots are fired. Dominic nodded. Who is he? Luca handed over a tablet, file already open. Marcus Hale, 43, insurance adjuster out of Cleveland, divorced. 1 daughter, 17, living with the ex, clean record. But the last 18 months told a different story. Luca scrolled. Joined 6 online forums, traditional relationship groups, places where men trade tips on finding compliant partners. Targets women from unstable backgrounds, foster kids aging out, runaways, anyone posting about needing a place to crash. Offers help, then isolates. How he get Alina? She posted in Cleveland about couchsurfing after foster care aged her out. He messaged. Offered a room, no strings. Strings appeared in under a week. Dominic's jaw tightened. The collar. Not a car accident. Strangled her 2 weeks ago when she tried to call a friend on a burner he didn't know about. Silence settled heavy in the SUV. Where, he taking her tomorrow? Dominic asked. New property upstate, middle of nowhere, told her it's their fresh start. Private, quiet, no one around for miles. She'd vanish there, no one would look. Dominic stared at the house. Imagined Alina inside right now, sitting on some worn couch, pretending everything was normal while her pulse hammered. How many men do we have? He asked. 4 plus us, ready to move. Surround it. No one in or out until I say, get Mafia Boss on the line. Luca dialed. Maria ran the network Dominic funded quietly, safe houses, trauma care, legal support for women the system failed. She answered on the second ring. I need a bed, Dominic said. Tonight, early 20s. Severe trauma. Strangulation injury, facial trauma, full isolation, no family, no resources. How bad? Maria asked, professional, unshaken. Months of control. He has her documents. She's been choked, marked, planning to disappear her upstate. A beat of silence. I've got a private facility upstate. Medical staff, counselors, legal on retainer. She can stay indefinitely. No charge. Good. I'll have her there by midnight. Dominic, Maria said carefully. This going to need legal cleanup. Everything stays clean on paper, he answered, which wasn't quite the truth. She sighed. Room will be ready. Send her with someone she can trust. Already arranged. He ended the call. Inside the house, Alina sat rigid on a sagging couch that smelled of dust and old smoke. Marcus moved through the rooms, checking windows, drawing curtains, turning on lamps. We'll stay here tonight, he said, voice carrying that practiced warmth. Rest. Tomorrow we drive north, our new place. Quiet, just us, you'll love it. Elena nodded. Agreement was safer than questions. He sat beside her, ran a hand down her arm. She didn't flinch. Another lesson burned in over months. You did good today, he said. On the plane, calm, natural, I'm proud. Thank you, she whispered. See, when you listen, everything works. His fingers brushed the collar, pressed lightly, a reminder. Elena closed her eyes, tried to hold on to the memory of the man on the plane, his voice, his promise. Outside, night fell fast. Dominic's men took positions, silent, invisible. At 7:45 p.m., the lookout at the back texted. He's in the kitchen. She's alone in the living room. Dominic looked at Luca. Time. They walked up the cracked steps. Dominic rang the bell. Footsteps inside. Marcus's voice through the door. Who is it? Delivery, Dominic called. Pause. I didn't order anything. Package for this address. Signature required. Silence, then locks turning. The door opened a crack. Marcus peered out. Recognition hit when he saw Dominic's face, the man from the plane. Alarm flashed. He tried to slam the door. Dominic's hand caught the edge, held it open. We need to talk, he said quietly. Marcus hissed. Get out. This is private property. I'll call the police. Go ahead, Dominic said. I'd love to explain why you have a 20-year-old woman with strangulation marks locked in your house, while you plan to bury her upstate tomorrow. Marcus paled. How do you? Doesn't matter how I know, Dominic cut in. What matters is what happens next. You get one choice. Marcus shoved at the door. Luca stepped forward. Shoulder met wood. Door flew open. Marcus stumbled back. Dominic walked inside. Luca followed. Door closed behind them. Elena appeared in the hallway, froze when she saw Dominic. Marcus backed against the wall. You can't just break in, Marcus snapped, voice cracking. This is illegal. Dominic looked at Elena. Expression softened instantly. Elena, he said gently, are you hurt right now? She shook her head. Good, go upstairs. Find a room with a lock. Go inside, lock it. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Can you do that? Marcus snarled. She doesn't listen to you. She's mine. She's not yours, Dominic said, each word cold and final. She never was. Elena hesitated, looked at Marcus, then at Dominic. She turned, walked up the stairs. Marcus lunged after her. Luca intercepted, palm flat against Marcus's chest, pushed him back hard enough to knock breath from lungs. Elena disappeared upstairs. A door clicked shut. A lock turned. Dominic turned to Marcus. Here, what happens now, he said. Dominic stepped deeper into the dim living room. The air smelled of stale coffee and neglect. A single lamp cast long shadows across threadbare carpet and mismatched furniture that looked like it had been salvaged from curb pickups. No pictures on the walls, no personal touches, just a temporary cage dressed up as a house. Marcus stood pinned against the wall by Luca's steady presence. Sweat beaded at his temples. His eyes darted between Dominic, the stairs where Elena had disappeared, and the front door that now felt miles away. Sit, Dominic said, not loud, not angry, just final. Marcus didn't move. Luca took one step closer. Marcus sat hard on the edge of the couch, knees bouncing. Dominic remained standing. He pulled a wooden chair from the small dining area, spun it around, and straddled it backward so the backrest formed a barrier between them. Casual, in control. Here's the situation, Marcus Hale, Dominic began. He let the name hang for a second, watched the color drain further from the man's face. I know who you are, I know what you do. Cleveland insurance desk by day, online predator by night, targeting girls fresh out of foster care, offering safety, then stripping it away piece by piece. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed. I have screenshots, Dominic continued. Forum posts, private messages, timestamps, photos you thought were deleted, brags to other men about how fast you trained her, how she learned not to speak unless spoken to, how the collar wasn't from any car wreck, it was your hand around her throat when she reached for a phone you didn't approve. Marcus's hands clenched on his knees. You're lying. You can't. Dominic pulled out his phone, unlocked it with a thumb, turned the screen toward Marcus. A gallery of evidence filled the display. Blurred forum threads, cropped messages, a time-stamped photo of Alina asleep, taken without consent. Dates, details, everything. Marcus stared. His breathing turned shallow. I also know about the property upstate, Dominic said. 40 acres, no neighbors, no cell service unless you drive 3 miles. Perfect spot to make someone disappear. You told her it was your fresh start. Told her she'd learn to love the quiet. Marcus's voice cracked. It's not what you think she wanted. Don't, Dominic cut in. Don't insult me and don't insult her. Silence stretched, thick, heavy. Luca stayed silent, a wall of muscle and patience, ready if needed. Dominic leaned forward slightly. You have 2 paths tonight. Path 1, you hand over everything, her driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, any passwords she was forced to share. You delete every file, every photo, every note you have on her. You sign a statement witnessed that she arrived here voluntarily and is leaving the same way. You agree to check into court-mandated therapy with a specialist I choose. 3 sessions a week, minimum 2 years. I get monthly reports. You deviate once, miss one appointment, search her name, contact another vulnerable woman, and everything I have goes public. Your employer, your ex-wife, your daughter's school, every forum you haunt. Your entire life becomes searchable under one keyword, predator. Marcus trembled. And if I refuse? Path 2, Dominic said softly. We skip the paperwork. My men outside have other methods. They're very thorough. You won't enjoy them. And when they're finished, you'll still sign whatever I put in front of you. Only you'll be doing it with fewer teeth and a lot more motivation. Luca cracked his knuckles once. The sound was small, sharp, effective. Marcus looked at the floor. Minutes passed. Then he nodded, small, defeated. Smart choice, Dominic said. He gestured. Luca produced a tablet and a small stack of printed forms. Dominic watched while Marcus unlocked his phone under supervision, deleted folders, cleared histories, emptied trash. Luca recorded the screen the entire time. Next came the documents. Alina's ID, birth certificate, social security card, all tucked inside a manila envelope Marcus had kept in a kitchen drawer like trophies. He handed them over with shaking fingers. The statement came last. Simple, 1 page. Luca witnessed Marcus's signature, date, time. When it was done, Dominic stood. One last thing, he said. You're going to a hotel tonight. Luca's men will drive you. You stay there until morning. Then you fly back to Cleveland. No detours, no phone calls. I'll have eyes on you for 6 months. Step wrong once and path 2 becomes permanent. Marcus nodded mutely. Luca pulled him to his feet, guided him toward the door. Before they left, Dominic spoke again. Marcus. The man stopped, didn't turn. If I ever hear your name tied to another woman, any woman, I won't send a second warning. There won't be a conversation. There won't be a hotel. Do you understand? A whisper, yes. Good. Luca took him out. The door closed softly. The house fell quiet. Dominic exhaled once. Then he walked to the base of the stairs. Alina, he called gently. It's safe. You can come down. Footsteps, slow, hesitant. She appeared at the top landing. Still in the hoodie, still collared, eyes wide and red from unshed tears. She descended one step at a time. When she reached the bottom, her legs buckled. She sank onto the lowest step and buried her face in her hands. The sobs came hard, silent at first, then breaking open, shoulders shaking. Dominic sat on the step beside her, not touching, not crowding, just present. He let her cry. Minutes passed, the house creaked around them. Outside, distant traffic hummed. When the worst of it slowed, Alina wiped her face with her sleeve. Voice raw. "He's really gone." "He's gone," Dominic confirmed. "And he's not coming back." She looked at him then, really looked. "I don't understand," she said. "You don't know me, you could have walked away. Why?" Dominic met her gaze. 7 years ago, I knew someone in a situation like yours, worked for one of my businesses, showed up with bruises. I asked if she needed help. She said no. I accepted it, because it was easier. 3 weeks later, she was dead, beaten by the man she said loved her. He paused, voice steady but quieter. "I carried that every day. So when I saw your signal on that plane, I had a choice. Walk away and wonder if you ended up the same way, or do what I should have done back then." Alina stared. "Who are you really?" "The Mafia Boss," he said simply. No apology, no explanation, just truth. "And tonight that means I protect who needs protecting." She swallowed, looked around the house. "What happens to me now? I have nothing, no money, no place. He took everything." "He took things," Dominic corrected. "Documents, those are replaceable. What he couldn't take is whatever kept you alive for 3 months. Whatever made you learn that signal and wait for the right moment. That's yours, always was." He stood, offered his hand. "I know people," he said. "They run a network, safe houses, medical care, counselors, legal help. You can stay as long as you need. No strings, just time to heal." Alina looked at his hand, then at his face. She took it. He helped her up. Outside, a different car waited at the curb, not the Escalade. A clean gray SUV, unmarked, comfortable. A woman stood beside it, mid-30s, warm eyes, no judgment. "Alina," Dominic said, "this is Sarah. She works with Mafia Boss. She'll drive you upstate tonight, stay with you, get you settled, answer anything you need." Sarah smiled gently. "Hi, Alina, ready to leave this place?" Alina glanced back at the house, then at Dominic. "Thank you," she said, voice stronger now. "I don't know how to repay." "You don't repay it," Dominic said. "You live, really live. And if you ever see someone else making that signal or wearing that look, you remember tonight. You do what I did. Notice. Act." Alina nodded. Sarah opened the passenger door. Before she climbed in, Alina turned one last time. "Your name," she said. "Your real name." "Dominic Russo," he answered. "Thank you, Dominic Russo," she said, "for seeing me." She got in. Sarah closed the door. The SUV pulled away. Taillights faded around the corner. Dominic watched until they were gone. Then he turned back to the house. Luca approached from the shadows. "Vance is checked into the hotel, 2 men on him. He won't move." "Good," Dominic said. "The house." "Salvage what's worth donating, destroy the rest. List it. Proceeds go to Maria's network, anonymous." Dominic nodded once. He looked at the peeling paint, the overgrown yard, the place that had almost become Alina's grave. "Erase it," he said, "every trace." Lucas smiled faintly. "You're a complicated man, boss." "I'm a practical man," Dominic corrected. "Suffering doesn't deserve monuments." He walked to his sedan, driver waiting. "Home," he said. The car pulled away from the curb. 3 months later. Dominic sat in his Manhattan office, floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering below like scattered diamonds. Late afternoon sun slanted across his desk. A plain envelope arrived via courier. No return address, just his name in careful handwriting. He opened it. A single sheet. Dear Dominic, I'm in Vermont now, small apartment. Mine, I signed the lease myself. Paid first month with money from a job at a local bookstore. Quiet, simple, exactly what I needed. The collar came off last month. Doctors say I'm healing. Therapy helps. Some days are hard, most days are better. I wanted you to know I'm not just surviving, I'm living. I wake up and choose my own hours, walk to work without checking over my shoulder, laugh at stupid customer jokes. I'm learning trust again. Slowly. None of it happens without you. You saw the signal when no one else did. You acted when walking away would have been easier. You gave me back my life. I teach a self-defense class now. Survivors, I show them the signal every session, because you never know who's watching, who might notice. You saved me that night, not just from him, from disappearing. Thank you for proving there are still people who choose to help. With gratitude. Elena. Dominic read it twice, folded the letter carefully, placed it in the top drawer of his desk, locked it. Then he went back to work. The Mafia Boss had a city to run. But somewhere in Vermont, a woman was breathing free air. And that balance mattered. 2 years later. Boston, Faneuil Hall Marketplace, crowds of tourists, street musicians, the smell of pretzels and seafood. Dominic walked through the bustle, quick meeting, in and out. A voice called his name. He turned. She stood there, mid-20s now, hair longer, shoulders straight, confidence in her smile. Elena, he said. Dominic Russo, she answered, grinning. I thought that was you. You look good, he said, meant it. I feel good, she replied. I'm here for a conference. I work for a nonprofit now, teaching self-defense to survivors, empowerment classes, the signals part of every curriculum. That's incredible. It feels right, she said, paying it forward. They stood in the middle of the crowd, city moving around them, 2 lives that had crossed once and changed forever. I got your letter, Dominic said. Never responded, wasn't sure what to say. You didn't need to, Elena said. I didn't write it for a reply. I wrote it because I needed you to know I'm okay. I'm glad, he said, quiet, sincere. She glanced at her watch. I have to get to my next session, but I'm really glad I saw you. So am I. She started to walk away, stopped, turned back. Dominic, she said, keep noticing. The world needs more people who do. He nodded. I will. She smiled, disappeared into the crowd. Dominic watched her go. Then he continued walking. Later, on the flight back to New York, he stared out the window at the dark sky. He couldn't save everyone. He couldn't see every signal. But he could stay vigilant. He could keep watching. And maybe, just maybe, he'd catch the next one at exactly the right moment. Because sometimes that was all it took. Attention. And the courage to act. The city lights of Manhattan blurred past the tinted windows of the sedan as Dominic Russo leaned back against the leather seat. The adrenaline from the night in Queens had faded into a quiet, steady burn, the kind that came after a job done right. Not the flashy violence his enemies expected from the Mafia Boss. Not the kind that left bodies in alleys or headlines in tabloids. This had been cleaner, more precise. A predator removed without a single shot fired. A life pulled back from the edge. He didn't speak during the drive. The driver knew better than to fill the silence. When they pulled into the underground garage beneath his building on the Upper East Side, Dominic stepped out without a word. The elevator ride to the penthouse was smooth, soundless. He entered the apartment, dark wood floors, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the East River minimalist furniture that cost more than most people's homes. None of it felt like home tonight. It felt like a fortress, always had. He poured 2 fingers of bourbon. Neat. Stood at the window and watched the river move slow and black below. His phone buzzed once. Luca. Vance secured. Flight booked tomorrow morning. Eyes on him 24/7 for the next 6 months. House crew starts cleanup at dawn. Donation receipts already routed through the blind trust. Dominic typed back, "Good. Keep me updated on any deviation." He set the phone face down on the marble counter, drained the glass in one swallow. The burn grounded him. He thought about Alina, somewhere in an upstate facility right now, probably still in shock, probably still waiting for the other shoe to drop. He knew the look. The one that said trust had been beaten out of you so thoroughly you expected betrayal from every shadow. Mafia Boss would take care of her. The network was solid, doctors who asked no questions, counselors who knew trauma like old friends, legal teams that could bury records deeper than graves. Alina would get new documents, new start, new name if she wanted it. And if she ever needed anything else, money, protection, a quiet favor, the Don would make sure it arrived without strings. He didn't do this for thanks. He did it because the alternative was carrying another failure like Sophia's death. Another ghost in the back of his mind every time he closed his eyes. He showered, changed into a plain black t-shirt and sweats, lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep came slow. When it came, it brought dreams of signals no one else saw, hands lifting in crowds, eyes pleading across terminals, voices whispering I'm fine when everything screamed the opposite. He woke before dawn, checked messages, nothing new. The day moved forward like any other. Meetings in Midtown, calls to capos in Jersey and Brooklyn, a quiet lunch with a city councilman who owed him a favor. Surface normal. Underneath, the machine kept turning. 3 months passed in the rhythm of empire. Then the letter arrived. Plain white envelope, hand-delivered through Maria's secure channel. No stamp, no postmark, just his name in neat, careful script. He opened it alone in his office. Afternoon light slanting gold across the desk. The paper was simple, hotel stationery probably, but the words were hers. Dear Dominic, I'm writing from Vermont, a small town you've probably never heard of, apartment above a bookstore where I work now. I shelve novels, recommend mysteries to tourists, make coffee for the regulars. It's quiet, predictable, safe. The doctors took the collar off 6 weeks ago. Scars are fading. The cut on my cheek is just a thin white line now. Therapy is hard some days. Other days it feels like breathing for the first time. I signed my first lease last week, paid with my own paycheck. No one's name on it but mine. I wanted you to know I'm not hiding anymore. I walk outside at night sometimes, just because I can. I laugh louder than I used to. I'm starting to believe people when they say they care. None of this happens without that night on the plane. Without you seeing the signal when I didn't think anyone would. Without you following through when most people would have turned away. I teach a class now, self-defense for survivors. Every session I show them the hand gesture. Palm out, thumb tucked, 4 fingers together. I tell them someone might notice, someone might act because you did. You gave me more than a way out. You gave me proof that power doesn't always mean control. Sometimes it means protection. I don't expect to see you again. I just needed you to know that I'm alive, really alive. And I'm going to make sure the choice you made mattered. Thank you. Elena Harper. Dominic read it slowly, twice, 3 times. He folded the letter, slid it into the same locked drawer where he kept the few things that mattered. No reply. Some things didn't need answering with words. He stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city that never slept. Somewhere north, a woman was rebuilding. That was enough. Time moved on. Winter came, then spring, then another winter. Dominic's world expanded and contracted in the usual ways. Alliances strengthened, rivals neutralized, money cleaned and reinvested. The family grew stronger, quieter, more disciplined under his hand. He never forgot the promise he'd made to himself that night in Queens. He noticed more now, not just threats to his territory, not just weaknesses in rival crews. He noticed the small signals in the world around him, the way a server's hands shook when a customer got too loud, the way a woman in a coffee shop kept her back to the wall, the way eyes dropped when certain names were mentioned. He didn't intervene every time. He couldn't. But when the signs were clear, when the danger was immediate, he moved. Quietly. Through back channels. Through Maria's network. Through favors called in without explanation. No headlines. No credit, just results. 2 years after the night at O'Hare. Boston. A crisp fall afternoon. Faneuil Hall Marketplace alive with tourists snapping photos, vendors calling out, the smell of roasted nuts and chowder in the air. Dominic was there for a quick meeting with a shipping contact. In, out, no fanfare. He cut through the crowd near the cobblestone square. Black overcoat, sunglasses, moving like he belonged and didn't at the same time. A voice stopped him cold. Dominic. He turned. She stood 10 feet away, mid-20s now, hair longer falling in loose waves, jeans, soft sweater, scarf looped around her neck, not to hide anything, just against the chill. Posture straight, eyes clear, smile real. Elena. He removed the sunglasses. Elena Harper. She laughed, a sound he hadn't heard before. Light, free. I thought that was you, she said. The walk, the way you move through crowds like they part for you. You look, he searched for the right word, strong. I feel strong, she answered. I'm here for a national conference. My nonprofit sent me to present on trauma-informed self-defense training. We're expanding the program to 3 more states. That's more than incredible, he said. That's necessary. They stepped to the side, out of the main flow of foot traffic, leaned against a low brick wall near a street performer juggling flaming torches. I got your letter, Dominic said. The one from Vermont. I figured you did, she replied. You didn't write back. Didn't know what to say. You didn't have to say anything. She met his eyes. I wrote it for me as much as for you, to close the chapter, to prove to myself I could write my own story. He nodded once, and now? Now I'm writing the next one. She smiled again. I still show the signal in every class. I tell them the story, not your name, never your name, but the truth of it. That sometimes one person paying attention changes everything. Dominic looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, thousands of stories, most of them invisible. You still notice? She asked quietly. Every day, he said. Good, she pushed off the wall. The world needs more people like that, like you. She started to turn. Elena. She stopped, looked back. If you ever need anything, he said. Anything at all, you know how to reach Maria, she'll reach me. I know, she said, but I don't think I will. Not because I don't trust the offer, because I'm finally building something that's mine. She smiled one last time. Keep seeing the signals, Dominic Russo. I will. She walked away, blended into the crowd, disappeared around a corner. Dominic stood there a moment longer, watched the place where she'd been. Then he slipped the sunglasses back on. Continued through the marketplace. Later that evening, on the flight back to New York, he stared out at the darkening sky. He thought about how many people he passed every day, how many carried invisible weights, how many sent silent signals no one else caught. He couldn't catch them all. No one could. But he could keep his eyes open. He could keep moving. And every once in a while, when the moment aligned, he could act. because attention wasn't passive. It was a choice. And action was what made it matter. The flight from Boston to New York was short, barely enough time for the cabin lights to dim before the captain announced descent into LaGuardia. Dominic Russo sat in his usual first-class window seat, coat folded across his lap, eyes on the city lights rising to meet them like scattered stars. The encounter with Alina in Faneuil Hall still lingered, not as a weight, but as something lighter. A quiet confirmation that choices made in darkness could echo forward into light. He didn't romanticize it. He wasn't the hero in some redemption arc. The Mafia Boss didn't get clean endings. His hands carried too much history for that. But every now and then, a single act cut through the noise. A signal seen, a hand extended, a predator removed, and the balance shifted just enough to breathe. The plane touched down smoothly. He deplaned without hurry, moved through the terminal like smoke. No one looked twice. That was still his greatest weapon, being seen without being noticed. Outside, his driver waited at the curb. Black sedan, tinted windows. The city swallowed them immediately. Back in the penthouse, Dominic poured a drink he didn't finish. He stood at the glass wall overlooking the river. The water moved slow tonight, reflecting the skyline in fractured pieces. He thought about the house in Queens, the one they'd gutted and sold. Proceeds had gone straight to Maria Voss's network. Anonymous, always anonymous. The property now belonged to a young couple who turned it into something bright. Fresh paint, a small garden, children's toys scattered on the lawn. No trace of what it had been. Good. He opened the locked drawer, pulled out Alina's letter from Vermont. Read it again, not because he needed to remember the words, but because sometimes it helped to see proof that power didn't always have to destroy. He folded it carefully, returned it to the dark. The next morning he was back in motion. A breakfast meeting with a capo from Brooklyn who needed reminding about boundaries. A call to Chicago about territory lines that were starting to blur. Lunch with a legitimate investor who thought he was just another real estate tycoon. Afternoon in the gym, weights, bag work, sweat that burned away the static. Routine, control, the empire hummed beneath his hand. But the noticing never stopped. Months later, on a rainy Tuesday in Manhattan, Dominic walked into a small coffee shop on the Lower East Side. Not one of his places, just a corner spot he passed on the way to a meeting. He ordered black coffee, stood near the window while it brewed. A woman sat alone at a corner table, early 20s, hood up, hands wrapped tight around a mug she hadn't touched. Her shoulders were hunched the way people hunch when they're trying to disappear. Every few seconds, her eyes flicked to the door. Dominic watched. Not starring, just observing. The way her thumb worried the edge of her sleeve. The way her breathing stayed shallow. The way she flinched, barely, when the barista called out an order too loud. Then he saw it. Her right hand lifted from the table, just an inch, palm flat, thumb tucked, 4 fingers pressed together, held for half a second, dropped. The signal. Again. Dominic's pulse didn't spike. It steadied. He took his coffee, walked past her table slowly, paused just long enough to set a napkin beside her cup. On it in neat print, "If you need help, nod once. I'll wait outside." He didn't look back, just stepped into the rain, stood under the awning across the street, waited. 5 minutes later she appeared, hood still up, eyes scanning. When she saw him, she hesitated, then she nodded once. Dominic crossed the street, kept his voice low against the patter of rain. "I saw it," he said. "I know what it means. My name's Dominic. I can get you somewhere safe. No questions unless you want to answer them, but you have to decide now." She looked up at him. Rain streaked her face, or maybe tears, hard to tell. "He's inside," she whispered. "Watching, he thinks I'm getting napkins." "Then we move fast," Dominic said. "Walk with me, casual, like we know each other. My car," around the corner. She swallowed, nodded. They walked, not fast, not slow, just two people sharing an umbrella in the rain. He kept his body between her and the shop window. When they turned the corner, he opened the back door of the waiting sedan. She slid in. He followed. The driver pulled away without a word. Inside the car, she let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for years. "Name?" Dominic asked gently. "Lily," she said, voice small. "Lily," he repeated. "You're safe now. We're going somewhere no one can find you unless you want them to. Doctors, counselors, new documents if you need them, all handled. No cost." She stared at her hands. "Why?" "Because someone should have done it for you sooner," he said. "And because I made a promise to myself a long time ago." She looked at him then, really looked. "You're not police," she said, not a question. "No," he answered. "I'm the Mafia Boss, and tonight that means I'm the person who noticed." Lily closed her eyes. A tear slipped free. "Thank you," she whispered. Dominic didn't answer with words. He just nodded once. The car moved through the rain-slick streets of New York, toward safety, toward another beginning. He couldn't save them all, but he could save this one. And the next time a hand lifted in silence, palm out, thumb tucked, 4 fingers together, he would see it. He would act. Because in a city of millions, attention was the rarest currency. And action was what made it priceless. Months turned to years. The empire grew quieter, stronger. Dominic Russo remained the Don, ruthless when necessary, invisible when possible. But the network expanded in shadows no one else saw. Safe houses multiplied. Maria's organization received quiet infusions of capital. Counselors trained more instructors. Classes spread. And every instructor taught the signal. Every survivor learned the story, nameless, faceless, of the man who noticed on a plane, followed through in a house in Queens, and never stopped watching. Dominic never sought credit. He never needed it. He simply kept his eyes open. Because somewhere, right now, another hand might be lifting. And he intended to be there when it did.